From Nashville, Tennessee, Love, Marriage, and Stinking Thinking, the program that takes on the common myths about life, love, and marriage. With national relationship speaker and author Mark Gungor, actress and author Nancy Stafford, music by blues recording artist Jimmy Bratcher. And now, the host of Love, Marriage, and Stinking Thinking, Mark Gungor.
Hey! How y'all doing? Welcome to today's program. Jimmy, how's it going?
It's happening, man.
It's happening, man. Would you please welcome my good friend, the incredible Reverend Jimmy Bratcher? Well, thanks for tuning in today. I'm Mark Gungor. Welcome to our show. It's called Love, Marriage, and Stinking Thinking. This is a program that takes on the common myths concerning life, love, and marriage. It's a show that examines the way men and women think, why we think, how our thinking impacts the way that we succeed or fail in our relationships. It's important stuff. So anyway, let's get right to today's Stinking Thinking. Don't marry too young. It's going to be a hot button issue today, Jimmy. Just to rile some of the folks back home.
That's nice.
That's okay. But anyway, to get a sense of how people think about this, we sent out our 33-year-old intern, Ross, out to talk to people back in my hometown of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Actually, we sent him down to Lambeau Field. Lambeau, you'll see it in the background. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the responses that Ross caught.
What is your ideal age for marriage?
I would say 35.
25.
After college.
Mid-20s.
Between 24 and 28.
What is the right age for someone to be married in today's society?
I would say about 27.
I'd say to my children, live life. Live life, experience life first and foremost, and establish yourself as your own person.
30-something.
Why is that?
Live your life a little bit.
What is the right age for someone to get married in today's society?
30.
Why?
Because you're stupid before you get that age.
That may or may not be the case, but we're going to be looking at this on today's program. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about what's really fundamentally problematic here. Is for some bizarre reason, when people's relationships fail, they all seem to go back to the beginning as an excuse for why they failed. They say, why did my relationship fail? Okay, well, because we were too young, or we didn't have enough money, or we were too stupid, or just whatever. So we didn't know each other well enough. But it's all bogus. I do not think, all of a sudden people are going along and they're happily married, and then they go, oh, wait a minute, we were too young, let's end it. It has nothing to do with the beginning. That's what everybody does. They listen to them. They'll always run back and explain the beginning. But marriage is not like that. Marriage is a race. I like to use the analogy of a race. Now, there's two kinds of races. There are sprints and there are marathons. Now, in a sprint, the most important part of the sprint is the start. You've got to get the start right. That's why these cats are down and they're in those blocks and they're practicing coming out of those things over and over and over again. Why? Because if you don't start just right in a sprint, it's over. You're doomed. You'll never make it. All right, then there's the marathons. Now, in the marathon, the sprint, the start is not nearly so important. In fact, you look at these guys, they're all standing around, scratching their armpits and just waiting for something to happen, right? And now, at the beginning of a marathon, you can fall down, have 6 guys run over your head, get up, and you could still win. Because it's not about the start. It's about the continued running and running and running and being consistent and that's what marriage is like. In fact, a marathon's a great analogy because, runners will tell you that in a marathon, they run until they think they're going to die. And then they get a second win and think they're going to go to heaven. And then they think they're going to die. And then they think they're going to go to heaven. That's marriage for you right there. So anyway, one of the common things that people use as an excuse, in my opinion, about marriage, why marriages fail, is this idea of marrying too young. And we're going to talk about that. on today's program. Would you please welcome my co-host? The lady's going to help us talk about this, the wonderful, the incredible, the amazing Nancy Stafford. Yeah! Nancy.
Hello.
Fancy Nancy. As I've been calling her all day.
It's been
Welcome to our program.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Love,
me.
Marriage,
I've been
and
loving
Stinking
this.
Thinking, yeah. Or as I like to call it, Beauty and the Beast. But anyway, okay, now this is going to fry a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
And
This is a good show.
Yeah, this one fries me just thinking about it. But this whole idea of getting married too young has created a disaster in our culture, and it's fairly recent. You know.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean.
Like how recent?
Well, I don't know, last 20, 30 years. I mean,
Really?
when I got married, a lot of guys got married out of high school and stuff like that. You back up before, you know, by the time you hit 18, 19, they expect you to be a man, right? You're supposed to grow up and stuff. But now we've created this insane thinking of this extended adolescence that is creating a disaster in our young people today, particularly in our boys. It used to be you were a teenager when I was growing up from like 12 to 18. Now you're a teenager from 12 to 32. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
It's right. It's
And
very
it's
true.
insane, and it's creating a disaster. And people, this is just really becoming a mess. Now, again, I don't get into these issues and start hammering on non-Christians for not thinking like us. You know, that stuff doesn't freak me out. You know what the pagans are doing? Everybody's like, the pagans are doing this, the pagans are doing that. They're pagans, you know.
They're doing what they do.
Yeah, they're bizarre, self-centered, narcissistic people who just, you know, we're not supposed to be like them, okay? We're not supposed to think like them, okay? We're supposed to be people of faith. We should be changing our culture around us, not letting the culture around us change us. And what has happened is in this narcissistic culture in which we live and this crazy thinking, we have allowed that onto the church. And we think and act and behave just like the pagans around us. It's one of the reasons we have the same divorce rate, failure rate, as the pagans. I mean, this is ridiculous. Christian people have a divorce rate supposedly as higher, in some places higher, than people who don't believe in God at all. Why is that? Because we act, think, behave, process just like the pagans around us, and we've got to stop.
It's really true.
And in no greater area is this true than this whole thing of this culture of pushing our kids to delay marriage. Now keep in mind, I'm not telling people you have to get married early. I'm not telling people you have to get married at all. In fact, if you're single, run for your lives, save yourselves. You know, so I'm not telling you have to do anything. I'm talking about the culture that tells our kids, threatens our kids, implies our kids. Man, I know of pastors who refuse to marry kids that aren't almost 30 years of age.
Are you
Oh, I'm
serious?
absolutely serious. It was
Oh my
dumb as
gosh.
bricks. And then we got Christian parents who totally abandon their children because they get married too young. They won't pay for their college. They won't help them financially. They won't have anything to do with them. They virtually prophesy and predict their failure by pushing them out there, disconnecting from them in every conceivable way. And then when they fail, then they come running back to, well, I told you shouldn't have. All based on what? It's all stupidity. You know, and I hear all the nonsense. People say, well, they're too immature. They can't do it. They're too immature. Really? Because right now, we have men and women in Iraq and Afghanistan at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age who flawlessly handle multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment every day and have a commitment level to the point where they will lay down their lives for each other. Don't tell me that an 18, 19, 20-year-old cannot have a commitment level enough for a marriage. It is ridiculous. They prove every day that they can. But they expect something out of them. They expect something. They expect them to do it. They train them. There's a mindset set in place. But no, our kids are too, they're 19, 20, they're 32. You can't rush them into nothing. They're still immature.
Let's talk for a second here, because just to play devil's advocate with you here.
It's the devil.
I'm the devil.
Best looking devil I ever saw, I'll tell you that right now.
That's the wily nature of the devil.
She is the devil. All right, devil's advocate.
Okay.
Suck it to me.
I think a lot of parents are trying to oppose their kids getting married at a young age because they don't want to end up having to be the financial support of their kids. They do want them to grow up. And I think they feel like if the kids will never leave home, if, let me finish the sentence. The kids will never leave home if they just kind of become the supporters in all ways of the kid and his wife.
They're not living home now. There's guys watching this show right now,
true.
32 years of age, still living home with mom.
Remote control, yeah.
Their only skills are just, you know, spacing out and playing video games. They're just as immature as the day they turned 16. They haven't matured. We haven't created an environment. And as far as supporting your kid, you don't want to support them financially. They're going to support them financially anyway. You made a commitment. Our daughter, we made a commitment, we're going to send our daughter to college, okay? At 19, she decides to get married. Well, for some bizarre reason, most of America would go, I ain't paying for your college now. What kind of stupidity is in that?
There have been, I've known a lot of young people who their parents paid 3 years of college, they decided to get married, and then they quit school. And I think that may be part of what the parents are reacting to. So
no, I don't think so. If they do that, you can strangle them anyway. I know a lot of guys that they're paying for the kids to go to school and they quit school anyway.
Yeah.
You know, don't tie it to that. I just don't buy it.
So why are parents so in opposition to this?
Because we think like our pagan culture. Everybody says everywhere, you can't do it. You get married too young. You get married too young. Because statistically, those who marry young have a higher divorce rate than those who wait a bit later.
But that's not true.
It's not true. And it's all bogus. And besides, they're taking statistics from the culture at large.
At large, yeah.
We're going to a narcissistic, self-centered, just little snot-minded culture and measuring from them what we should do with our kids. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like going to a bunch of people that smoke 8 packs of cigarettes a day to get health statistics.
Right. Yeah.
You know, well, let's get health statistics from these people. Are you kidding? They don't take care of themselves. There's nothing there.
So parents are actually contributing to their kids' extended adolescence by not encouraging this idea of marrying earlier. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. We don't expect our kids to do anything. We expect our kids, first of all, this whole idea of adolescence anyway just fries my Puerto Rican pancakes. Whatever that means, I don't know what that means.
But they're fried.
It's a fairly new thing. It started like in the 30s or 40s, the whole idea of adolescence. You know? Boy, didn't that pay off well by the time we hit the 60s.
Oh, yeah, 70s, really.
And the country going to hell in a handbasket. Because we started treating teenagers as a separate class now. It used to be you were a child or you were an adult, straight up. You know what? You know the Bible where Paul says, when I was a child, I thought as a child and I behaved as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. Yeah. Do you know how old he was when he became a man? Anybody? 12, 13. Jewish culture, bar mitzvah. You're not a kid anymore. Grow up, get a life. There was none of this. You know, well, I'm a teenager now. And now we give them permission not to mature, not to grow up, to goof around, do nothing. And now we've extended it out the whole 20s. And then you listen to these nitwits on the street talking, say, well, I got to kill my kids. Go out there, live life, enjoy life, sow your wild oats. Do all the destructive things you can so that your life will stink for the rest of your married life. Right. There's a good plan
You'll
for
have
us.
Consequences to pay. Oh, my gosh.
Goodness
so what do you
gracious.
say to the singles, though, who want to get married, but they haven't found somebody yet that they want to marry, and they feel like it's settling? If they marry who they... Okay, here we go. I'll use my life as an example. We are polar opposite here.
Yes.
Mark and Debbie got married at 18 years old. His daughter and Ross got married at 18 or 19 years old.
My son.
A son.
Our whole family.
Your
son
son,
the whole
too?
family.
Okay.
Everybody in our family. Man, if you're not married by age 21,
something's wrong with
there's
you.
something wrong with you.
We're
worried about your orientations. You know what I'm talking about? You know.
Now, I got married.
And let me add to that.
Yeah.
Divorce is extremely rare in our family.
That's great.
You know,
that's
this whole idea. These kids are growing up. They're living life together. They're growing together in life. Listen, before you get into that.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Okay,
that's huge.
Okay, I'll let you come back to that. I know where you're going, but let me finish this because I got to answer the basic questions that are out there. But the next question people have: what about college?
Right.
Okay, what about college? Okay, what are they, you know? But yet, every study shows that married kids do better in college than single kids, particularly the boys.
Because they're partying around.
No, they're finally getting sex. They can think about something else for 5 minutes.
That's right.
I am not kidding around. That's exactly what it is. You know, these guys are going crazy. All this testosterone around through there. You know, some babe sitting next to them, they're not hearing a word their teacher's saying. Goodness gracious, so that, there's no sense in that. The logic of threatening your kids, I won't pay for your college because I don't want you to be married. Married kids perform better in that situation.
Interesting.
It's just
and the girls aren't fluffing around and running around trying to pick up guys. It makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah. Which leads me to the next point, okay? The greatest single indicator about whether or not a person will say successfully married is not how old you are, it's not how much money you have, it's not how much education. The greatest single indicator is sexual activity.
Really?
The greater the sexual activity, the greater the damage that happens. Now check this out. I'm going to read a couple of things.
You mean before you get married?
Before you get married.
Are you talking about sexual activity in your marriage? You're talking about
No, before you get married. Check this out. A few years ago, they did this study, 1995 National Survey on Family Growth. Okay? Check out. They found out that for women 30 years of older who they surveyed, those who were monogamous with only one sexual partner for the lifetime had a divorce rate of only 20%.
Wow.
Sleeping with one extra guy increased it to almost 50%.
Wow.
And we're not talking lovers here. We're just talking one other one-night stand. Jumped it almost to 50% in that group. And those who had just a third one jumped to almost 60%. This is the single, in the study it says, who would have thought that the price of sleeping with even one partner would lead to divorce for almost half of those who had only one extra tryst? This is the thing. Now, it's not what we do as Christians. And again, I'm talking as a Christian culture. We tell our kids, don't get married, wait till you're almost 30, but don't have sex.
Yeah, be pure.
Yeah, how's that working for us? That's a real great deal. And our young men, and I'm going to get back to your question here, you're touching on a second again. Our young men are growing and they're getting addicted to porn, pornography. It is destroying their lifestyle, okay? And they're not growing and maturing. And then you have the question, well, what if I can't find anybody? And generally the ones, getting back to your question now, the ones who ask that question usually are women, okay? Because overwhelmingly, it's the women, the young girls in our churches and in our faith culture who can't find guys to marry, okay? Why? Because they're all partying out there and acting immature and irresponsibly. They're not growing and they're not maturing. And the reason they're not is because they don't have to. Here's another article I want to read to you. This was in the Dallas Morning News, okay? I don't know this lady. I don't know if she's a Christian or not, Kay Himowitz or whatever her name is. But check it out. She says, not so long ago, the average mid-20-something had achieved most of adulthood's milestones, high school degrees, But now, this is not happening. Now we have boys who happily linger in a new state of semi-hormonal adolescence. And what's happening is women are discovering that this limbo state does not bring out the best in young men. Well, what they're getting are guys that they're not worth marrying anyway. They are absolutely immature as can be. History suggests an uncomfortable fact about the single young male. He's immature because he can be. Okay? And we've talked about this, dealing with men.
We did.
But we have set where we expect nothing out of them. They don't have to grow up, they don't have to mature, they don't have to do anything, and they stay immature. And people say, well, boys are too immature. But you know what? Check this out. Ooh, I love this. Check this out. She says in the study, she says, what we are learning is that what anthropologists have discovered in cultures everywhere, that it's marriage and children that turn boys into men. They will stay immature. And I'll tell you, and a lot of you single girls out there right now, a lot of you feel more attracted to married men than you do the single guys your own age. You know why? Because they're more mature. They sense more maturity. But what you don't understand is the reason they're mature is because they got married. That's what jerks and you guys have got, how many of you guys know that the day you got married, it just jerked the slack out of you? You know what I'm taking? I mean, all of a sudden, just life became serious. And you got serious about life. It's responsibility. You give guys a state where they don't have to mature, or they don't have to grow up, then nobody expects anything out of them. They don't.
Agree.
And that's why in the church, if you look around, in most churches, you can't hardly find a single 20 to 30-something-year-old guy. They're not there. Look around in your church. See how many of them are there. They're as rare as the dodo bird. But the girls, they're everywhere. Go in a church and say, how many single girls do we have in this church? Watch the hands go up. Say, how many single men we got? Well, the only one or two there afraid to raise their hand. You know? Afraid I might get mugged on the way out. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Because we are creating an environment that is giving our young boys permission to behave immaturely. They're not growing up. And we have 30, 31, 32, 33-year-old guys still living at home at mom, they're no more mature than the day they turn 16 because they don't have to be. But this whole time, they are getting just a series of bad experiences. Either going out and getting sexually involved or getting involved in all this porn and stuff like that. It is a disaster. If there's any culture in the world, a culture of a Christianity that believes in maturity and sexual purity, it should be us that are encouraging our people to get married and do this right in the first place. In fact, Paul said the very main reason for marriage, if you read it in the Bible, and I know we want to talk about soulmates and la, 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 but Paul said the reason to get married is because there's so much sexual immorality. He says he says, listen, guys, don't get married. That's what Paul said. Don't get married. You know, today in the church, get married, and if you're single, there's something wrong with you, right? That's what you get. In Bible days, don't get married, and if you do, there's something wrong with you. You know, they felt bad for you then. Literally, read it, 1 Corinthians, okay? But he says, but I understand, because there's so much sexual immorality, best that everybody have their own wife and their own husband. Well, if there was ever a time, man, back in Paul's day, they didn't have internet porn, they didn't have TV, they didn't have images that come flooding into your house constantly. We have this incredibly over-sexualized culture. And we're telling our young boys and girls, don't act on it, don't act on it, don't act, but don't get married, don't get married, you're too young, you're too young, you're too young.
That's true.
And
I totally agree with your point about this prolonged adolescence in men. In California, where I live, in the church that I've been involved in, we do have a lot of young men that are 20 to 30. But guess what? The men and women are not getting together. They are just somehow not connecting. And then here's the flip side of that, too. If you extrapolate that out, guess what? We've got a lot of women who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who the men are out there, too, but they're children. They're not acting like responsible men, and they are not interested in or getting connected with the women, who are incredible women. So there is, I think the longer the adolescence is permitted, then I don't know if you can ever find somebody that is enough for you.
Yeah, I think it's just sad. I really do. I think it's a major problem
Now,
in the
I have
church.
one question.
And if we don't stop it, there's going to be hell to pay in this country.
Yeah, you're right.
We are headed for a serious disaster. And what everybody's doing is front-loading this young age. Have fun, have fun, have fun, have fun.
Enjoy
we're
your
people
life.
of faith, for crying out loud. I understand pagans acting that way. People of faith, we're going about other partying and goofing around and putting all this emphasis on. I'm 53 years of age. I go to Disney World with my grandsons. There's guys my age there. They're also with little kids. But it's not their grandsons. It's their kids.
That's right.
Their kids. I'm thinking, man, are you on drugs? They're going to be 70 years old before that kid gets out of college.
Right.
Goodness gracious. You know, they're putting all this emphasis on this magical 20-year-old. For what?
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
I got to tell you, though, now I was not a believer when I was 20, 21, 22, 23, but I married at age 35. So I am kind of the opposite example here of Mark and his family, of multiple generations of getting married early. I got married for the first time at 35 years of age. My husband had been married before. And I got to tell you, though, it's a scary proposition. If I think back on who I was dating at 18 years old, if I had married that guy, I mean, honestly, I don't know where I'd be today.
Again, you were not a believer. Okay, if our kids...
I was raised in a family of faith, though. And I was just not walking.
Look, I don't know about you. There's exceptions to all this stuff. And again, I'm not telling people you have to get married. And if you want to wait till you're 93 to get married, knock yourself out.
But you know what? You're right.
Okay?
Because
But I am telling you, this culture is destroying it. And the proof of it is overwhelming. And there are consequences that we're heading towards.
I had some consequences.
That we haven't. We'll talk about in this next show. In fact, we're going to roll this show back to back. Because I want to talk about this continuing into the next week's program, because we're only just beginning to touch on this. But this thing is a serious disaster. And again, I'm not telling anybody they have to, but man, if you have a kid that's too immature and too self-centered and selfish to get married at 20, 21, 22 years of age, whose fault is that?
Yeah, ouch, that hurts.
How about we start growing up, instead of trying to figure out what's the best way for narcissistic, self-centered little snots to succeed, statistically, how about we stop raising self-centered, narcissistic little snots? How about we start actually having young men and women that, and I'll tell you what, because we push this at our church and stuff like that, you should see the impact it has on our young people.
Really?
They are not the ditzy teenagers.
Boy, they take responsibility.
They take responsibility. It's like if I came to one of you guys I'll pick on you.
Okay.
If I were to say to you, would you come and preach for me next Sunday morning, okay, and you agree, you know, what are you going to be doing this week?
You bet.
You're studying, man. Opening up and just, you know, man, I got to check this out. And, ooh, I want to get in this word. And you're thinking and preparing. Why? Because you have something that's being drawn on you, being pulled out of you. And it causes you to rise expectations. Yeah. You rise to a higher level.
You do.
If people you're in a culture where nothing's expected of you, that's exactly how you believe. Right. And when we tell our young people, look, you don't have to, again, no one's trying to tell me they have to do this, but we tell them by the time you turn 18 years of age, we expect you to be a young man. We expect you to be a young woman. And you have the permission of this church and your family. If you find someone that you want I don't care if it's when you're 19, 20, whatever the deal is, you want to get married, we're going to be behind you 100%. It changes them. And even if they don't get married till they're 35, I don't care. It still changes them because now they're viewing life differently. Oh my goodness. I can actually have a responsible life and something's required of me. It changes the way they act. It changes the way they behave.
Can you imagine the next generation when we have raised a generation of young people like that, when they are our age, what the difference will be in this culture? Yeah. And so that's how parents can really guide their kids toward understanding this concept of marrying early, is just to start giving them more responsibility.
Giving them more responsibility. Give them what they need to become an adult. Quit playing this teeny bopper nonsense with our young people. And our churches that have these youth ministries where it's all about games and nonsense and stuff like that. Do you know that we're losing up to 80% of our young people by the second year of college today?
Yeah.
Completely losing on their faith. Why? I wonder why. You know, we need to start reevaluating where we're at. I know some of you are freaking out watching this because this is really countercultural. Anyway, tune again next week because we're going to continue on this subject because we just scratched the surface. This is a big deal. It's a wake-up call to our homes. We need to start thinking differently, be transformed, the Bible says, in the renewing of our minds. Thanks for watching today. We'll pick it up again next week. God bless.
Love, Marriage, and Stinking Thinking is made possible by your continued support of this network. To learn more about Mark Gungor and how you can improve your marriage, visit us online at stinkingthinking.com. There you will find Mark's best-selling book, Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. You can also see if Mark will be bringing his seminar to a city near you. And you can listen to Mark on his weekly radio show where you can call in with your questions and speak with Mark in person.
Hardly ever fuss and fight. We learned a long time ago how to get it right. Hug and kisses. My baby loves me, so I sing her this tune. I love my baby. Yeah, I love my baby. Yeah, I love my baby. My baby loves me. I love my baby. My baby loves me. I love my baby. My baby loves me. That's what I'm talking about.
Love, Marriage, and Stinking Thinking is a production of Laugh Your Way America.